Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be stepping into a world of magic and adventure, exploring the Teleportation Labyrinth from Volume 12 of Mushoku Tensei, Jobless Reincarnation. Imagine like a dungeon
Right.
that shifts around like a Rubik's Cube packed with terrifying creatures. Challenging puzzles.
Yeah, sure.
You'll find it's more than just a dungeon crawl, though.
Right.
It's a story about family, loss, and facing your fears.
It's interesting how the author takes like a classic fantasy trope, the dangerous labyrinth, and infuses it with such emotional depth.
Yeah.
The labyrinth becomes a metaphor almost for the character's internal struggles and the unpredictable nature of life itself.
So before we get into like the nitty-gritty, what exactly is the displacement incident?
Yeah.
This seems like a pretty big event that shaped a lot of the story.
So the displacement incident was a global catastrophe that scattered people randomly across the world.
Wow.
Imagine waking up one day and finding yourself thousands of miles from home with no way to contact your loved ones.
Oh, wow.
It's the driving force behind the search for Zenith,
Right.
Rudeus's mother, who vanished during that event.
Okay, that puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
It's not just about exploring some cool magical dungeon. It's about a family desperately trying to reunite after a world-altering event, and they're willing to risk their lives to do it.
Absolutely.
You mentioned a guidebook, an exploratory account of the Teleportation Labyrinth.
Right.
Does it actually help, or is it more like a tourist brochure for a death trap?
It's a bit of a double-edged sword. The book offers valuable insights into the labyrinth's mechanics and the dangers within, but it's also, outdated and incomplete. Even with the guide, navigating the teleportation labyrinth is like trying to solve a puzzle, where the pieces constantly change places.
And on top of that, you've got these terrifying creatures lurking around every corner. I mean,
Yeah.
Death Road Tarantulas, Armored Warriors, Devouring Devils.
Right.
These names alone are enough to make anyone think twice about entering.
It's not your average dungeon crawl, that's for sure. These creatures, with their unique abilities and strategic challenges, force the characters to think creatively and work together to survive. But it's not just about brute force. The labyrinth also tests their resourcefulness and mental agility.
Speaking of resourcefulness, our protagonist, Rudeus, isn't exactly a seasoned adventurer.
Right.
He's a young mage, a lot of book knowledge, but not much practical experience. How does he hold up against these seasoned veterans like his father, Paul, and the skilled warrior, Elise?
I think Rudeus's lack of experience is actually one of his strengths. He approaches the labyrinth with a fresh perspective, questioning assumptions, and noticing details that others might overlook. He's constantly learning and adapting, which is essential in such a dynamic and unpredictable environment.
So it's like the classic brains versus brawn dynamic. You have Paul, the experienced swordsman, charging into danger, and Rudeus, the scholar, trying to outsmart the threats.
Exactly. And that dynamic creates some interesting tension within the group. It's not just about fighting monsters. It's about navigating different personalities and approaches to problem solving. You see this early on with Paul's eagerness to show off his skills. Clashing with Elise's more cautious approach. She emphasizes the importance of setting a good example for Rudeus, which shows a different side to Paul's character.
It seems like even in this fantastical setting, there's a lot of real-world family dynamics at play. I'm curious to see how those dynamics evolve as they face more challenges. But they're all united in their goal of finding Zenith, right?
Yeah.
That shared purpose must be a powerful motivator.
Absolutely. The search for Zenith is the glue that holds this group together. It gives them a reason to push forward, even when fear and doubt creep in.
But their journey isn't exactly a smooth ride. We also have Rudeus's former teacher, Roxy, entering the labyrinth before him and having a pretty rough time of it. Her solo experience adds another layer to the story, doesn't it?
Roxy's journey provides a stark contrast to the main party's experience. She's alone, facing overwhelming odds, and her internal monologue reveals her fear, desperation, and struggle to maintain hope. It really highlights the psychological toll of the labyrinth and the importance of companionship in the face of danger.
I can only imagine how relieved she must have felt when Rudeus and the others showed up. But their reunion was far from a typical hero saves the damsel scenario.
Right.
It's interesting how Rudeus reacts by throwing up, not from fear or disgust, but from the intensity of his emotions.
Yeah.
It throws a wrench into that typical trope and makes you wonder about the depth of his feelings for Roxy.
It's definitely not your typical hero's entrance. It shows Rudeus's vulnerability and the complex emotions he carries for Roxy. It's clear their relationship goes beyond that of student and teacher.
Yeah.
And It adds another layer of complexity to the dynamics within the group.
So now we've got this expanded party,
Yeah.
facing increasingly dangerous creatures and complex teleportation puzzles as they delve deeper into the labyrinth. But you mentioned that the guidebook doesn't cover everything. Did they hit a point where they were flying blind?
On the 6th floor, they encounter a series of teleportation circles, leading to unknown destinations. The guidebook offers no clues, and even Rudeus's expertise with magic circles can't decipher which path is safe.
Oh, wow.
They're forced to rely on intuition and a bit of luck.
That's gotta be terrifying. It's like choosing between several doors,
Yeah.
knowing that one might lead to treasure while another leads to a monster's den. What kind of tension did that create within the group?
It brings the conflict between logic and instinct to the forefront. Rudeus, being the scholar, wants to analyze every detail and find the correct solution. But Geese, the seasoned adventurer, relies on his gut feeling, arguing that sometimes the best choice is the one that feels right.
It's a fascinating dilemma. In a situation like that, who would you trust? The scholar with his books and theories, or the veteran with years of experience in the field?
It's a tough call, and the story doesn't give us an easy answer. In this particular instance, it's Rudeus who notices a crucial detail overlooked by both the book and the experienced adventurers. He realizes there might be more to the room than meets the eye, ultimately leading them to a hidden staircase and the 7th floor.
So the scholar wins this round, but I have a feeling their challenges are far from over. The 7th floor, the final level of this constantly shifting maze, what awaits them there?
That's where they come face to face with the guardian of the labyrinth, a creature so formidable it makes those earlier monsters look like harmless kittens. This encounter is more than just a battle. It's a test of their skills, their resilience, and the strength of their bonds.
I can't wait to dive into that. Let's pick up right here in the next part and explore the epic confrontation that unfolds on the 7th floor.
Right.
All right, we're back and ready to delve into that final level of the teleportation labyrinth, this guardian you mentioned. Just how formidable are we talking?
Imagine a creature the size of a baseball field, with multiple heads that can regenerate, each one bristling with teeth and dripping venom. Yikes.
And to make matters worse, its scales are like magic-absorbing shields, deflecting most spells. This is the Hydra, the ultimate test for our adventurers.
That sounds absolutely terrifying. No wonder the previous monsters seemed like kittens in comparison. Did our heroes have any idea what they were walking into?
Well, they knew the final level would house like a powerful guardian, but nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale and ferocity of the Hydra.
Right.
Their initial attempts to fight back are almost comical in their ineffectiveness. Rudeus's fire magic, usually so potent, is absorbed by the Hydra's scales.
Wow.
Even Paul's expert swordsmanship can't inflict lasting damage. It quickly becomes clear they need a new strategy, and fast.
So what do? Do they pull a rabbit out of a hat, or is this a moment where despair starts to set in?
This is where Roxy's knowledge of monster lore proves crucial. She remembers a detail from an earlier encounter, a type of monster called iron crawlers that were vulnerable to fire, despite their tough exteriors.
It's a long shot. But she theorizes that the Hydra, with its regenerative abilities, might share a similar weakness.
That's a pretty risky gamble, especially considering the dangers of using fire magic within the labyrinth itself. Didn't they have a close call with that earlier?
Right. The labyrinth is filled with flammable materials. One wrong move could turn the entire place into an inferno.
Right.
But they're desperate, and Roxy's theory offers a glimmer of hope, so they decide to risk it.
So what's the plan of attack? How do you even take on a monster that size and with that many heads?
It's all about teamwork and exploiting their individual strengths.
Okay.
Roxy and Rudeus combine their magic, focusing their fire spells on the Hydra's heads, while Paul, Elinalise, and Talhand engage in close combat, drawing the creature's attention and providing cover.
It sounds like an incredibly chaotic battle. Was their gamble successful? Did the Hydra go down easily?
Not at all. The battle is brutal and intense. The Hydra, even with its potential weakness to fire, puts up a fierce fight. The party's forced to retreat, taking heavy losses.
Oh, wow.
Talhand, the dwarf warrior, is gravely injured. The mood becomes grim.
This is where the true cost of their mission starts to become clear. Up until this point, they've faced dangers and setbacks, but this feels different. It's like the reality of their situation, the possibility of not making it out alive, truly hits them.
Exactly. The stakes have never been higher. and their emotional resilience is pushed to the breaking point. And in the midst of this chaos, we see how the pressure can affect even the most experienced adventurer. Paul, driven by his desire to protect Rudeus, makes a critical error.
What happens? What mistake does he make?
He charges into battle, ignoring Rudeus's warning about a potential trap,
Oh, no.
blinded by his need to protect his son at all costs. And that's when tragedy strikes. The Hydra, in a last desperate attack, catches Paul off guard, and he's fatally wounded.
Oh, wow. So even with all his experience and strength, Paul's paternal instincts ultimately lead to his downfall. What a heartbreaking turn of events. How does Rudeus react to losing his father in such a sudden, traumatic way?
It's a devastating blow, and the way Rudeus processes this loss is incredibly realistic.
Yeah.
Initially, he goes numb, almost detached. He focuses on completing the mission, pushing his grief aside. But later, the full weight of what happened crashes down on him, leading to a period of intense depression and self-blame. It's a powerful depiction of the complex and often delayed nature of grief.
So they've lost Paul, their leader and protector, and Rudeus is struggling to cope with this immense loss. But they're so close to their goal. Do they manage to find Zenith?
They do. After defeating the Hydra, they discover Zenith. But she's not the mother Rudeus remembers. She's encased in a magic crystal, seemingly devoid of consciousness or memory. It's a bittersweet victory, a reunion that offers no comfort.
It's like they've achieved their objective, but at the worst possible price. They've found Zenith, but is she even truly there? And how do they even begin to process this after everything they've been through?
That's what they grapple with as they make the long and arduous journey back home. Carrying the weight of their loss and the uncertain fate of Zenith, the labyrinth has tested them physically and emotionally. And now they must find a way to heal and rebuild their lives.
It's a journey not just across physical distance, but also through their own emotional landscapes. What does that look like for Rudeus, especially in the aftermath of his father's death?
It's a process of confronting his own complicated feelings about Paul.
Yeah.
He reflects on their often turbulent relationship, acknowledging Paul's flaws, but also the genuine love he had for him. It's about accepting that even imperfect fathers can leave behind a profound legacy. And as he grapples with these emotions, he finds solace in an unexpected source, Roxy. Their relationship deepens during the journey back, and she offers him comfort and support in a way that no one else can.
It sounds like their shared experience in the labyrinth has forged a powerful bond between them. But didn't you mention that Rudeus has a wife, Sylphie, waiting for him back home? This could get complicated.
Indeed. Their journey back home is fraught with unspoken tensions and the potential for conflict. Rudeus is carrying a heavy burden of guilt and grief, and he's not sure how to navigate these new feelings for Roxy while staying true to his commitment to Sylphie.
This is shaping up to be one difficult homecoming. What happens when they finally reach home? So after all they've been through, the battles, the loss, the emotional roller coaster, our heroes finally make it back home. But you mentioned some unspoken tensions. What kind of homecoming was it?
It's a homecoming filled with mixed emotions. On the surface, there's relief and joy. Sylphie, Rudeus's wife, is overjoyed to have him back safe and sound. But beneath that surface, there are currents of unease and uncertainty.
It sounds like they've returned physically, but a part of them is still lost in that labyrinth. What's it like for Rudeus trying to adjust to everyday life after such a harrowing experience?
He's definitely not the same person who set out on that journey. He carries the weight of Paul's death, the guilt of surviving, and the complicated emotions he feels for Roxy. He's withdrawn, struggling to connect with his family, even with Sylphie, who desperately wants to offer comfort and support.
And what about the others? How are they coping with the aftermath of the labyrinth?
Each of them handles it in their own way. Elinalise, with her years of experience and wisdom, tries to offer guidance and a listening ear. Geese, ever the pragmatist, focuses on the practicalities, selling their loot from the labyrinth and preparing for the next adventure. But it's Roxy who stays by Rudeus' side, offering him a unique form of understanding and solace.
It's interesting how their roles have shifted. Roxy, who was once Rudeus' teacher, is now almost a confidant, a source of emotional support. It seems like that shared trauma has created a bond between them that transcends their previous relationship.
Exactly. And that bond creates a complicated triangle, especially with Sylphie in the picture. Remember, she's been patiently waiting for Rudeus' return, dealing with her own anxieties and preparing to become a mother. Now she's faced with this unspoken tension between her husband and his former teacher.
That's a lot to process. How does she handle it? Is there jealousy, resentment?
It's actually quite surprising. Sylphie, despite her worries, approaches the situation with remarkable maturity and compassion. She senses that Rudeus is holding something back, that he's not ready to share the full extent of what happened in the labyrinth.
So it's like there's this silent elephant in the room. Everyone knows something is off, but no one is quite ready to address it head on. How does that tension finally break?
The truth comes out, but not in a subtle way. Rudeus, after much hesitation and prodding from Roxy, decides to tell Sophie and his younger sisters about Paul's death. It's a moment of raw emotional honesty, and the reactions are intense.
I can imagine. This is a family that has already been through so much, and now they're facing the loss of a husband, a father, a central figure in their lives.
Norn, Rudeus's younger sister, who is particularly close to Paul, reacts with anger and disbelief. She accuses Rudeus of betraying his father's memory by finding comfort in Roxy's arms. It's a raw, visceral expression of grief, and it highlights the different ways people process loss.
It sounds like a very real and relatable depiction of family dynamics in the face of tragedy. Everyone grieves differently, and sometimes those differences can lead to conflict and misunderstandings.
Yes, and in the midst of that conflict, Sophie's reaction is remarkable. She listens to Rudeus's confession, acknowledges his pain, and offers him forgiveness and understanding. She recognizes that love isn't about possession or exclusivity. It's about supporting each other through difficult times.
That's incredibly mature and compassionate. It takes a strong person to respond with grace and empathy in such a charged situation. So how does this affect the dynamic between Rudeus, Roxy, and Sylphie? Does it tear them apart or bring them closer?
It leads to a truly unexpected turn of events. Sylphie, after learning about Roxy's role in saving Rudeus's life, the depth of their bond, suggests something radical, that Rudeus take Roxy as a second wife.
Wow. That's a huge step. It goes beyond just accepting their feelings for each other. It's about incorporating Roxy into their family unit in a formal and lasting way.
It's a decision that reflects the unique world they live in, where social norms are more fluid and polygamous relationships are not unheard of. But it also speaks to Sophie's character. She's not driven by jealousy or possessiveness. She prioritizes the happiness and well-being of those she loves, even if it means challenging conventional notions of family and marriage.
And how does Roxy react to this proposal? She seems like someone who values her independence and freedom. Is she willing to embrace this new role?
Initially, she hesitates. She's aware of the potential for conflict and doesn't want to disrupt the life Rudeus and Sophie have built together. But Sophie's sincerity, her genuine desire to welcome Roxy into their family, eventually wins her over.
So they form this unconventional family unit, bound by love, shared trauma, and a willingness to embrace the complexities of their relationships. It's definitely not your typical happily ever after ending, but it feels right for these characters and their unique journey.
Absolutely. And as they navigate this new normal, Rudeus takes a crucial step towards healing. He visits Paul's grave, finally confronting his grief head-on. He acknowledges his own shortcomings as a son, but also expresses his love and gratitude for everything his father did for him.
It's a powerful moment of closure, a recognition that even flawed relationships can have a profound impact on our lives.
And through this act of remembrance, Rudeus finds a renewed sense of purpose. He resolves to honor Paul's memory by living a fulfilling life, protecting his family, and using his skills to make a positive difference in the world.
So the Teleportation Labyrinth, this dangerous, shifting maze, has been more than just a physical challenge. It's been a crucible, a journey of self-discovery, loss, and ultimately growth.
And it leaves us pondering some big questions. What are we willing to sacrifice for those we love? How do we navigate grief and forgiveness? And how do we find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels chaotic and unpredictable?
These are questions that resonate far beyond the fantastical setting of this story. They're questions we all grapple with at some point in our lives. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder those questions. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those tough questions.